Welcome to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. I'm Ted Bonnet, and I'm not Phil Proctor.
No, neither am I. I'm MC Gainey. Hi!
MC Gainey. Phil's out working today. He's making a living.
That's disgusting.
I know.
It's elder abuse.
He was so excited. Anyway, he sends his love.
Well, I want to tell you that we've gone off the reservation today. We've gone wild. We don't have your average run-of-the-mill guests here. We reached way, way down. We came up with a true speaking man, the pride of Washington Heights, Ron Perlman. Ron, welcome in.
Yes, you scraped the bottom of the barrel this time, son.
Done pretty good. We're 5 seconds in. He hadn't said anything wrong yet. All right, here we go.
Hey, Ron, thanks so much for coming to the show.
You say that now.
In case you don't recognize that iconic voice, Ron is somebody you've seen on TV and film and stage. Classically trained actor, by the way.
It says that in my resume.
It is. I got this off of IMDb.
Yeah,
so
I got it off of Chat GPT or whatever.
It also says he does dialects and fencing and horseback. Although we did do a Western one time. We did that Magnificent Seven, right?
That's right.
That's right.
I'm sure you know him from Sons of Anarchy. You played the boss.
If you got cable.
If you got, and my personal favorite, Hellboy, the movie. I loved Hellboy.
And my personal favorite, Happy Texas.
That's right. That's where we met, MC.
Oh, that's where you guys met?
Magnificent Seven was before that.
I was at Sundance with you to see that.
You were.
Anyway, it's really great to have you. And
it's really good to be had.
And we're going to talk about your illustrious career, of course. And
then the rest of it.
And the rest of it, which is about...
It won't take long to talk about the illustrious part. In fact, I think we're through.
We have covered that pretty well, haven't we?
Yeah, we covered it.
Pressing issues, Election Day, a week away. Mm-hmm. And I think that's it's just you're such a wallflower about opinions on these things. And we're going to have to...
I try to keep to myself.
Pull it out of you a little bit.
It's not working, but I try.
And also, you are outspoken about the state of the show business industry here in town in Hollywood.
No.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. And I'd love to talk to you about your take on the industry now, which is almost undefinable. It's so difficult. It's astounding the state of the industry right now and where it is. I don't think anybody really knows. What do you think?
I think I know.
I know where the industry is in Albuquerque.
I think I know where it is, and I think I know why it is. The question is, how do we dig our way back out? Mm-hmm. I've been grappling, not just me, but people like me who are obsessed with our participation in this venerable old art form, cinema, television, anything that's camera-oriented, narrative. Obsessed with the difference between something that seems like a good idea at the time, but has no sustainable kind of legs, like the bet to be just nothing but home entertainment, which is what streaming is, and then. The notion is storytelling bigger than that? Will it withstand these moments where some forces in the marketplace that seem like good ideas at the time but are completely myopic and unsustainable? Because we're so faced with what the new normal is, which is streaming. It's almost impossible to imagine a way back out to return to, and I think that's a big conversation that people are having. Like everybody's talking about, well, nobody's getting their entertainment this way anymore. The kids are on TikTok and they're on YouTube and they're on this and they're on that, and nobody's watching television. So it's, to me, the big question is what is it you're going to bet on? I'm betting on the fact that it wasn't a fluke how important cinema was over the last 100 years to audiences around the world.
Double that.
I'm betting on the fact that we are more beholden to the storytelling, which it's never been done better than it was with the invention of cinema, because that particular art form encompasses all of the other art forms. It's the only art form that encompasses all of the others, including philosophy, existentialism, music, painting, sound, fury, you name it, and narrative. And I'm betting that's holds more value than the current climate is indicative of or is reflective of. And I feel like we are. If you sink this low, and you ask anybody in the business, like what their last couple of years have felt like and looked like, and you have major filmmakers and actors and designers who are Uber drivers now or working at Burger King. When you sink this low, the real smart money sees nothing but an opportunity to okay, it can't get any worse than this, but this is an opportunity to correct all that and to make it better. So that's
desperation breeds opportunity.
Yeah, and never let a crisis go on. What do you call it? What's the phrase? Never let a good crisis go on
to waste. Yeah,
go to waste.
Yeah.
So I'm betting on the art form. I'm betting on the magnanimous scope of talent that is born every single day. That is meant towards to leave behind classics, and I'm betting on against a system that has taken all of the glamour and the grandeur and the pageantry and the magic and the beauty out of all of that.
Governor Newsom this week proposed to more than double the tax credit to compete with the other states, and it's still less than what Georgia is offering, and yet we have the fourth largest economy here. I mean, you would think that California would go full tilt.
Well, there was a thing on Deadline last week that in the third quarter this year, there were fewer hours of production in Los Angeles than there was in the third quarter of the year before. Third quarter of the year before, we were on strike.
That's astounding.
That's scary.
And New York is coming back strong. And then you've got the foreign money, and people are going overseas. I mean, this is not terribly new, but it's so much more profound now, where California people are, like you say, driving Ubers, and because the industry, the foundation of the industry is not there anymore. But that happened in 2009 with the digital revolution. As I told you, I did the radio campaign for Hellboy back in, 2004 or what?
That movie's been around that long, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you. You're the reason why we just made it into the black.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
We shared drinks, at the Academy Awards once.
Did we?
Yeah, the year that The Lord of the Rings swept. I went with Edie McClurg. And
love her.
I came in through the red carpet. It was such a trip. And then as soon as we got in there, I realized, okay, now I'm just another industry trade show. And so I went to the bar to drink as much free champagne as I could.
Which is where you found me, because I had the exact same experience. Pretty boring.
You had that look on your face. I didn't want to bother you, but because we were both drinking as much as we could. I had to go up to the Alps. The party's 300 feet below me, and
it was still pretty dull down there.
Really? It looked like that was at least the fun place to be.
Yeah, no, there was it was the land of very famous faces.
I like the way we're segueing from the horrors of the industry and the possible future and extermination of any group of people who would sit together in the dark in a large group and listen to movies and watch movies. Is that ever going to happen again? But let's go back and remember how boring the Academy Party.
Hey, this isn't called the Sexy Boomer Show for nothing.
I'm all about that, baby.
Yeah.
Pinprick my little balloon, MC. Go ahead.
Yeah, your balloon is not that small, sir, and my pinprick will hardly reach it. I will say that there are people. I know. I have a friend named David Poland who is a writer about films and sort of a critic. He's been around a long time, and he's seen 26 movies in the last 2 months. I mean, that's what he does. He sees movies. And I have no idea where he's seen them or if anybody ever was in any of those theaters besides him. But when he did a post last week listing all the movies that are coming out, I was blown away. How can we not be coming back when it's going to be hard to decide which 10 movies to name for Best Picture of the Year. There are some great movies in the pipeline right now headed right at us. And
so what is it, the distribution model, the production
that's what I'm
model?
wondering. Maybe it's not just the production, where we're going to make it. We're going to shoot it in Albuquerque or Atlanta. It doesn't really matter to me where I work. It's where am I going to be when I see it? And will I be in a theater with other people, or will it be forever sitting watching it at home?
It comes down to societal norms now, how these personal devices have really divided us and separated us. We had Phyllis Katz in, who's one of the early groundlings, and in last week, and we were talking about improvisation would be a wonderful thing to incorporate into school curriculums because liberal arts are fading away. People don't think they can make money, so they're forcing STEM students to take liberal arts classes.
Right, so they actually have to talk to each other.
To learn socialization, to learn character, to learn judgment, to learn stories of life, not to repeat mistakes, classics. And the STEM students are loving it. They're successful programs.
Well, they're doing it better than I did it. When I did improv, it always wound up with bloodshed. There's 6 people at a bus stop. Well, the first one that was going to stab somebody would be me. Another thing that gets me about it now is TV series that used to come in at 32 episodes, now come in at 6 or 8 or 10. And they drop a lot of money and they hire a good cast and they make them for 10 episodes. And it just makes me wonder if there ever be a throwback show that would have 26, that's not a housewife show, that would have, and I mean Bravo's Housewives, I don't mean, will there ever be one that's a full order for a season again? Don't know.
What do you think, Ron?
Are we on the air?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I just
he took a nap.
Oh, good morning.
Yeah, you guys were talking, and it didn't
resonate.
Touch me on any level.
No, okay.
No, I don't know what to make of any of it, but I feel as though we started to lose our way when the studios became one line on a corporate ledger sheet.
Indeed.
That had 207 other items, and that the only thing that would be sustainable about the studio's well-being and ability to exist would be what kind of quarterly profits they were putting up. So they became slaves to appealing to the lowest common denominator, and they became slaves to doing tentpole things that talked to audiences that heretofore were not the audiences that sustained the economically the industry, and little by little it just became more and more of a commodity, and it got peopled by people who knew how to run corporations and take care of quarterly earnings rather than families that had their name on the product, like the Warner Brothers and and the Mayors and the Goldwyns and the Foxes and the Lemleys and stuff. I feel as though the only solution is a complete throw the whole model out and start again. And start with the notion that we're going to make films that we want to make for ourselves, and we're going to offer them in a way that is audience-friendly, but that hopefully will create some sort of a new way of looking at our culture, or not a new way, a revised old way of looking at our culture. And appreciate things so that we can return some of this stuff that's been left behind by just the fast food element of how our culture is made. You're still seeing great things on some of these streaming platforms because the talent has to go somewhere. But the bet is that as these streamers realize that now that they've decimated all of the revenue streams that used to fuel how a studio existed, which is theatrical sales, then home entertainment sales, then network sales, then cable sales, then foreign sales, but it's now down to just subscribers, and you're going to plateau because, once you got all the subscribers, there's nobody else to get. There's no more revenue to get, and you're still spending more than you're making. That's unsustainable. So it's got to be thrown out. That model has got to be drop kicked, and we have to resume to some sort of a place where artists are given a place to show their best stuff in the best way possible, which could, hopefully lead back to filling those theaters that are now empty. Yeah. And they're only empty because streaming happened in the like 2015, 2016, and then we had a pandemic, and it seemed like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then the pandemic was over, and we're left with the fact that it's a mess. And they've cut back on all this production. The reason why people are driving Ubers and working at Burger King is that they've cut back on so much production because they realized they've killed the golden goose, or the goose that lays the golden egg, whatever the expression is.
Yeah, see, this is a great moment because this is exactly where streaming has left us. This is the most depressing 23 minutes I've ever heard in my life. What happened to the movies? Something came along. 2 world wars came along. The movies continued to exist. People went and sat in the dark and watched movies.
More than
Depression
ever.
Came along, and my God, it was a godsend. And we managed to go through Vietnam and all kinds of other disasters, and there were always movies. And now there are no movies that we can go to a movie and see with a crowd. I don't know how you fix that. I mean, I think it fixes itself. I'm hoping it fixes itself. People will say, gee, I'd like to go out and see what it's like to sit in a room with 250 people and listen to them laugh.
It's almost like a bygone era. I mean, at Disney Hall, it was crowded, but it was all old people. We're just in another era.
We are. What we need is a different kind of entertainment. We need something that's filled with idiots and idiocy and comedy that makes you cry.
Let's talk about your career then, MC. You're listening to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. Phil is out this week making a living, and he'll be back next week. And in his stead is the inimitable MC Gainey. Thank you for coming in, MC, and bringing Ron Perlman with you, our guest this week. And you wrote a memoir.
I did.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so it was about 12 years ago or something like that. I was just around turning 60 at the time. There was a book agent canvassing talent agents all over and said, do you have any clients you think might want to write a book? And they said, well, Perlman never shuts up, so he's probably got a book in him.
At least one.
And they got me on the phone, and they said, have you ever contemplated writing a book? I said, no, I haven't. And they said, well, if you were in a situation where you could identify a point of view that connects to where you've been and what you've done, do you think you can come up with something like that? And I said, yes, I do. And it harkens back to everything we were talking about before, which is that I'm old enough to remember when all of the studios, not just movie studios, but television studios, radio stations, were all family-owned. They were all mom and pop. And during my first 10 years on the planet, all these studios, for one reason or another, began to falter financially. So you have Sony coming in and buying MGM, and then you have Gulf and Western coming in and buying
globalization,
Paramount. But corporatization. More to the point. And these corporations saw assets there that they were good for their brand, perhaps going to generate some pretty
sold their electronics,
pretty hefty, sell their electronics and then generate some profit and be a propaganda machine, etc. All of the things that a corporation sees when they co-opt. But the point is that the tenor of when you're talking about something that's representing a cultural aspect of our lives, like storytelling, and then you take away the human aspect of the family-run thing, and you corporatize that so that it becomes nothing but a bunch of ledger sheets and quarterly profits and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You are asking the culture to do less and less what it's really good at, and more what it's going to be good for the corporate bottom line. Mm-hmm. And so that was going to be the point of view of my memoir. And it's a normal memoir. It talks about how I started. It talks about my influences. It talks about how I lost my dad when I was 19, and how from that moment on I carried all his aesthetic with me, the movies he turned me on to, the music he turned me on to. These things mean more to me now than they ever have before. I think I'm one of many people in the world that basically carry their parents around with them in that way, especially if their parents had as much of a cultural influence on them as mine did.
You grew up in New York City's Washington Heights.
Grew up in New York City, Washington Heights, lower middle class, Jewish family. My dad was a laborer till in his mid-40s, and then he became a teacher, and then as soon as he found his real calling, which is teaching, he passed away at 49. So that was that was the memoir. But the memoir was basically intended to be a letter to my kids, who right at that moment were all coming out of art school. Mm-hmm. Some of them were actors, some of them were writers, some of them were painters, some of them were dancers, but they all were coming out into the world, into a brave new world. Education is this very safe little laboratory that you can spread your wings in and find, your identity in, all these wonderful, beautiful things. Then you come out into the world, into a place where, it's stand and deliver, and you got to make enough money to pay the bills, and you got to, and that's a whole other thing. So maybe writing a memoir chronicling all of the slings and arrows maybe creates a bit of a shortcut or a path that somebody can look at and go, this is not meant to be easy. And it was it never whitewashed how those moments, that literally almost kills one. So yeah.
What's the name of your memoir?
It's called Easy Street, The Hard Way.
By Ron Perlman.
By Ron Perlman.
Did you always want to be an actor? Did you know that?
The minute I first acted in a high school play, I knew that I had found an environment that supported all of these things that nothing else heretofore were going to jibe with. I started rehearsing a play in high school, and I realized I am not the most neurotic person in this group. And that's when I realized I'd found my community.
And did you start on the stage in New York?
Started on the stage in New York, did 2 years high school, 4 years college, 2 more years of grad school, got a master's degree at University of Minnesota in theater. And by the time I had finished, I had 8 years of stage training just by going to school, and then decided to cut the umbilical cord, move to New York, and start eating ramen, as one does. Driving a yellow cab.
Ah, the good old days. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You started with a stage career?
Started with a stage career.
So with that kind of training behind you, it was a leap to professionalism was within grasp.
You would think. But no, it was so I graduated from school, came back to New York in 1973, and didn't get my first real commercial job until 1980. So that's 7 years of doing pretty much community theater, off Broadway, off Broadway. Off Broadway, you get a paycheck. Off Broadway, you get,
car fare.
Not even.
a handful of gimme and a mouthful of much obliged.
Get paid in compliments.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get out to Hollywood?
I think it was American Airlines. We had our first kid in 1984, and I realized ramen might have been good for me and the old lady, but the kid was going to have to,
So you were starving married actor.
Yeah. And this is when I realized that New York was not going to be, it was incredibly exciting artistically.
Yeah.
The people who were still alive writing plays, Edward Albee was still alive, Harold Pinter was still alive, Samuel Beckett was still alive. And so you were part of a very vibrant, but you couldn't make a living. Mm-hmm. And I was what they call not Procter and Gamble. So I couldn't even do soap operas, which is the only way a New York actor can make a living. Or if you get a guest star on, one of the two shows that was shooting either Law and Order or whatever the hell it was.
And there was a kind of an interesting film scene then. I mean, feature film business.
Yeah,
the New York.
But they didn't want any part of me. So I came to L.A. in the end of '84. And began to do little, guest spots on The Fall Guy and stuff like that. And one thing led to another, and then, yeah.
What was your first break?
Well, there were all these fits and starts with me. My first break was long before that. Was a movie called Quest for Fire.
Oh, I love Quest for Fire.
And then that led to 3 years of nothingness.
Mm-mm.
And then that same director hired me for another movie called Name of the Rose. Mm-hmm. And Name of the Rose kind of segued into this this show was casting called Beauty and the Beast for CBS. And Name of the Rose was out in the theaters, and they knew that they needed an actor who didn't mind wearing 4 hours worth of prosthetic makeup and stuff. So I was on a very short list of people who were being considered for that. So I would say that me getting the role of the Beauty in Beauty and the Beast was probably my first commercial sort of tap on the shoulder saying, okay, this is as mainstream as it's going to get. CBS, primetime, Friday nights, 8 o'clock.
That must have been sweet.
It was.
Yeah.
2.5 years of sweetness. and then 3 years of nothing.
Yeah.
So, like I say, fits and starts, and pretty much every one of these fits became desperate, became like, holy shit, I got to sell. Oh, sorry, I'm not allowed to curse. Holy cow, I got to sell my house. I got to take my kids out of school. I got to,
Yeah.
And then suddenly something would swoop down. I was always saved right before I crashed and burned.
I bet you that's more common than people might think.
Well, I think it is, but I also think that I don't want to paint the wrong kind of picture. I am as fortunate and as lucky and as grateful, and I have had a career incredibly way beyond my dreams, and I'm a big dreamer. Mm-hmm. So I'm not complaining, but I am saying that there was enough time to be tested, and and to gain the character that only comes from abject failure and abject terror and abject inability to maybe, keep your head above water. So it was a great combination of phenomenal opportunities mixed with huge periods of non-activity, which created all of this kind of like tough outer layer of like, okay. And the other thing that does, you said, did I always know I wanted to be an actor? Well, those kind of tests will, so many of my friends didn't pass those tests, and they walked away from the business. And it's heartbreaking when you watch a friend who's talented, maybe way more talented than you are, but just didn't get the breaks and couldn't sustain his way through.
And the hustle, the determination.
These moments.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, to keep at it when things are down, that's a whole nother trick bag of talent to do.
But I think the line in the memoir, to put a nice little ribbon on this, is that I never learned anything when I was succeeding. All of the growth I had, all of the learning I made, all of the character, if there's any at all, was when things were always just going wrong. And nothing. The universe wasn't providing me anything. It had to come from some sort of a faith and a belief when there was no reason to have any.
Sons of Anarchy. I mean, it seems like that role was made for you, and the gravitas that you brought to that show. There was no question of the authenticity of your character.
Thank you.
I mean, really, it was great.
I was terrified of that role.
Were you?
Yeah, and it's like I had all these parts where I had 4 hours worth of makeup, Beauty and the Beast and Name of the Rose and Quest for Fire. But those were characters that I understood and that were very much like my wiring, they're kind of like, underachiever, fun guys, just Clay Morrow on Sons of Anarchy had a ruthlessness that I didn't understand, and I didn't think I was going to ever be able to create a relationship with where I was going to be able to be effective. And I really was terrified of playing that role. But it was one of those things where you just have a talk with yourself. Are you an actor, or are you a coward? Are you because if you're a real actor, you're going to have to make friends with being uncomfortable, and with not knowing whether you're going to succeed or not, and be willing to crash and burn.
And you're not hiding behind a mask, literally. It's you.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a really classic ensemble cast. All the characters were compelling and interesting.
Thank you.
Was it like that for you as colleagues? Did you have a good time on it?
Oh my God, yeah! I used to get speeding tickets going to work on that show. I couldn't wait to be with those guys.
Uh-huh.
None of us speak to each other anymore. No, I'm kidding. We're still going strong, but yeah, it was.
Did you ride a motorcycle before that series?
No.
Ah.
And not since.
And that wasn't scary to you? That was
very scary to me.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And Hellboy. Hellboy was an interesting movie. And I say I know it so well because I had to work it, and what I had to do was flesh out moments to portray in 30 to 60 seconds all the highlights of the movie. And what you brought to that character was terrific. It was the reluctant hero who is dealing with all the repercussions of being a superhero. It's not as easy or fun as it looks. That's kind of the drift I got. It's a lot of humor in that movie, and it was in your line reads.
Guillermo del Toro, who fought for 7 years to get me that role, none of the studios, were sympathetic to the idea of a character actor who really hadn't created a brand for himself, be handed something that could have turned into be a studio franchise. But the comic book, Hellboy, only spoke in one-word sentences. So in order to flesh out the personality that one needed to have in a filmic portrayal, Guillermo chose me as the model, meaning he made him into an underachieving slob who basically never wanted to do anything but watch Marx Brothers movies and Three Stooges and eat pizza and stay at home and play with his cats. But he happened to be a superhero. So he reluctantly just went out and saved the world. Didn't want to, couldn't wait to get back to the Marx Brothers.
The funniest line I still remember all these years later was some villain says to you, you're going to pay with your life. And you just said, take a check. I love that line. Gave us a lot of mileage in the campaign, which, again, now going back to the business, is like, that doesn't even happen anymore. That collective marketing, the collective, getting excitement, getting people to go to the theaters for an event-oriented picture. Those marketing people who were making $900,000 a year, by 2011, they were sleeping in cars.
I mean, I don't know about you, MC, but, in these last few years, since streaming has become the tail that's wagging the dog, I was in a movie that very well should have been a perennial movie that played for 4, 5, 6 months in the theaters, then another 3 or 4 months before it hit television, etc., and that you would watch once a year with your family. It was called Don't Look Up. It was an Adam McKay film. Very, very smart film. Phenomenal cast. Meryl Streep, Leo, Jennifer Lawrence and stuff. But because it was on streaming, it was so unmagical. It had a great following for about 3 days. And the thing that is roiling all of us about this new normal and why we absolutely have to figure out a way to leave it behind us, and I think the point I was trying to make earlier is we have to act like it never happened. And we have to have the courage and the patience to be able to go, this may take a while to undo what these last few years have trained us to do, which is basically stay in our pajamas and have everything brought to us.
Right.
But what that has done in terms of the quality of our lives, the ability to leave the house with the little woman and go and spend 2 hours in a darkened theater with 2,000 strangers and walk out transformed, that's more than just cultural.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a layer that it doesn't hurt that while you're watching that movie, you're also realizing that, oh, these people are going through the same stuff I'm going through in my life. That's why I love this movie so much. And you're noticing that all of the people in this dark room who you never met before are laughing and crying in the same place as you are. And now you're part of a collective consciousness. So when you contract the whole thing of it and turn it ordinary so that you can, you take all of the pageantry out. Look at the Radio City Music Hall. That's one of about 1,000 theaters across the United States that was built to mirror what our movie-going experience was meant to be. It's chandeliers, it's vaulted ceiling, gold gild, it's 4,000 seats, it's magical sound. Those theaters still exist all over the United States, but that's how we used to think of our culture. Yeah. And now we're sitting in our sweatpants and having everything brought to us like it's Chinese food.
That's depressing.
Well, but it's unsustainable, and we have to act as if it never happened. That's the only way out of this. So
what do you think?
I think you have to create an environment which puts all of the pageantry and all of the magic and all of the speciality back into it.
How are we going to do it?
I don't know. I'm working on something. I'm not far enough along yet in order to publicly talk about it, but I know it has to do with making sure that we don't do any of the things that are being done now. And you create an environment where every artist in the world wants to be. And all of a sudden, you're going to have followers. You're going to have an audience. And the audience may start small, but it's going to grow, and it's going to grow, and it's going to grow, and it's going to... And then we can maybe start having conversations about returning the pageantry, returning the theatrical experience, returning, the glory, and the ritualistic beauty of leaving your house, putting on nice clothes, going to get dinner, and then watching something that blows your mind. Or if it doesn't, go the following night and see something that does. But it's all of a piece here. So you talk about the memoir, which basically chronicles how corporatization was the beginning of the dehumanization of mankind, because the ability to work in a mom and pop, which if it was a good restaurant or a good business, some corporation saw how good it was doing and bought it up. You used to be able to, just have a high school education and then live the American dream, which is to raise children, retire with dignity. But because you can't do that anymore, because you're living in a corporate America where, 99% of the profits go into the hands of 10 people, and the rest of us can go ourselves, which I can't say on public radio. But this is why you get Trump, is because everybody is so angry. And they don't know what to do with their anger, but they have a good reason to be angry.
Absolutely.
Because they have been passed by for corporate greed and for the fact that everything is a number. There is no such thing. The only way these corporations can hold sway over the world is to let you think that you don't have any value.
Yeah. Well, isn't it interesting that that rage that you're talking, that outrage, which is genuine, is being channeled by the very perpetrators to convince these people to vote against their interests by voting for Trump when you see who he fronts, who he represents. He's just a desperate, convicted felon trying to stay out of jail. He'll take money from anyone. He'll take influence from anyone. It's working. It's kind of shocking. You get out of the L.A. bubble. I was in Utah last week, and I spoke to a young man who's very successful at business, hardworking, terrific, some guy I hired to do some work, and he was fantastic. But he wanted to talk politics. And he came of age and voted for the first time for Trump. And he's got a 5-month-old baby, and he's the only one in his friend group that has a baby and a townhome that he spent $500,000 for. And he's angry about that. And he's voting for Trump. And I said, well, and we had a long, it was really kind of a delight to speak to somebody, in a civil way for over an hour about where I could kind of pry and find out why Trump? And I realized that what you had is, because he came of age in the Trump era, he has not experienced democracy as we knew it. And he has also ingested 10 years of propaganda, much of it from outside hostile nations that have manipulated our social media. And when we started getting into the thread of it, and it was like, oh my God, I can't penetrate the concrete. It's like, it's a stratified.
Yeah, it's radicalized.
I can't imagine talking to somebody who voted for Trump for an hour without choking them half to. If he's bought into that, he's too stupid.
Well,
it's time to thin the herd.
There's a reason for it. You have to accept the reason for it. I don't agree with it. This is a very formidable issue we're dealing with next week, because there's a generation that had the food taken off their plate. They don't even understand how it was taken off their plate, and they are angry.
They just know they're angry, and they know they need to.
They think they're angry now. Give that guy the wheel 4 more years, and you'll see some anger.
Ron, thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Really, thank you. We'd
love
to have you back. I feel we only scratched the surface here.
Yeah, no.
We even talk about culturally.
Chapter 1.
Yeah. Would you come back?
I will come back, and I hope the thing that we're talking about is a little bit further down the road. And I hope when I come back that we'll have our first female president. I'm absolutely sure we will, and we can talk about all those things. But this place is worth fighting for, and this place is worth getting a little bloody for, because it's the worst form of government on the planet, except for all the others.
Yes,
that's what somebody said.
Good point. Well, thanks so much, Ron Perlman, and thank you, MC Gainey, guest host.
You're very welcome.
You were fabulous, and thanks to our listener out there. And
please
vote next week. Democracy is really on the line. No kidding.
Because I know if you could listen to an hour of this, I know who you're voting for. So I say go vote.
All right. And you can also catch back shows at sexyboomershow.com. I'm Ted Bonnet. My compadre Phil Proctor will be back next week, and we'll see you then. Vote. God save America.
Damn right.